Word of this spread rapidly, and the king was held in high esteem. 1 Kings 4:29 says, God gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight, and a breadth of understanding as measureless as the sand on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the men of the East, and greater than all the wisdom of Egypt. He was wiser than any other man, including Ethan the Ezrahite, wiser than Herman Calcol and Dada, the sons of Mahol. And his fame spread to all the surrounding nations. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. In fact, his words in the song, Turn, Turn, Turn by the Birds, reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart on the 4th of December, 1965. He described plant life from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of walls. He also taught about animals and birds, reptiles and fish. Men of all nations came to listen to Solomon's wisdom, sent by all the kings of the world who had heard of his wisdom. Solomon had peace on all sides, so he set about building the temple. As he was doing this, the word of the Lord came to him. 1 Kings 6 verse 12, the Lord said, As for this temple you are building, if you follow my decrees, carry out my regulations, and keep all my commands and obey them, I will fulfill through you the promise I gave to David your father, and I will live among the Israelites and will not abandon my people Israel. Solomon completed the building of the temple. It took 7 years, and the details of it are exquisite. Stone overlaid with beautifully carved timber, which was overlaid with gold. Solomon held a dedication ceremony, and the people celebrated for 2 weeks. The Lord appeared to him and said again, As for you, if you walk before me in integrity of heart and uprightness as your father David did, and do all I command and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish your royal throne over Israel forever, as I promised David your father when I said, You shall never fail to have a man on the throne of Israel. But if you or your sons turn away from me and do not observe the commands and decrees I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land I have given them, and I will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. Israel will become a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. And though this temple is now imposing, all who pass by will be appalled and will scoff and say, Why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple? And the people will answer, Because they have forsaken the Lord their God, who brought their fathers out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshipping and serving them. That is why the Lord brought all this disaster on them. Solomon went from strength to strength. He undertook many projects. He had 550 officials supervising the men who did the work. 1 Kings 10:23 says, Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all the other kings of the earth. The whole world sought audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom God had put in his heart. Year after year, everyone who came brought a gift. Articles of silver and gold, robes, weapons, spices, horses, mules. The king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar as plentiful as a sycamore fig tree in the foothills. If you want to hear some of the wisdom he shared and have a read of the book of Proverbs. They are so good. You can dodge a whole lot of pain in this life reading the words in that book. What an awesome and uplifting story this is. Until 1 Kings 11. King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter. Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites. They were from nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, you must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after their gods. Nevertheless, Solomon held fast to them in love. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. What? That's not how the story is supposed to go. This is an epic Bible hero story, and they're supposed to be riding off into the sunset and stuff. I always thought David, epic hero and man of God, Solomon, epic hero and man of God, and Rehoboam, idiot who stuffed up a great family legacy. But listen to this. Chapter 11, verse 4. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God as the heart of David his father had been. He followed Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Moloch, the detestable god of the Ammonites. So Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely, as David his father had done. So the Lord said to Solomon, since this is your attitude, and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees, which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. Nevertheless, for the sake of David your father, I will not do it during your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hands of your son. So I've got a little bit more empathy for Rehoboam now. So is Solomon saved? Because the prayer group from Maitland and I was having this discussion that if you could invite any 10 people from history to a dinner party, who would you invite? And quite frankly, Solomon is way up there as a candidate. 1 Kings 11:41 says, and this is the last stuff written about Solomon, as for the other events of Solomon's reign, all he did and the wisdom he displayed, are they not written in the book of the annals of Solomon? Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel 40 years. Then he rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David his father, and Rehoboam his son succeeded him as king. No, doesn't say. So I Googled it. It amused me to see that so many other people were asking the same question, and the answer may possibly lie in the book of Ecclesiastes, the meaningless book, the wet blanket book, a book that I now appreciate in a whole new light, now that I look at it through stuffed up wise man's glasses. Ecclesiastes 1 verse 1, this is how he starts this book. The words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. And then he goes on in this vein for the whole book. Everything that happens has happened before. Even people born after me will be forgotten. What's the point of planning great projects? I don't know if they'll be looked after properly when I'm dead. He says a couple of things that really show that this is him being in the state of being estranged from God. Listen to this. He says, better a poor but wise youth than an old but foolish king who no longer knows how to take warning. And this one, oh, you're going to find this hilarious. I found one upright man among 1,000. But not one upright woman among them all. Did he blame his wives for his bad choices? Have any of you women out there received blame from your men for their poor choices? Adam, did you eat from the forbidden tree? This woman you gave me. So Solomon says, so I hated life, because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. I'm going to read that again because it's important. He said, so I hated life because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. Here we have a man, a rich man, a highly accomplished man, an honored and exalted and adored man, a man with a very large family. And he says, so I hated life because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. I want you to compare this with Paul and Silas. They were stripped, they were beaten, severely flogged, thrown into prison. They were placed in a dark inner cell with their feet fastened in stocks. And there they prayed, and there they sang songs as the other prisoners listened. And the God who was so immeasurably generous to Solomon turned up and saved the day. What an awful situation it is to not be right with God. There is hope that Solomon made peace with God before his death. He concludes the book of Ecclesiastes with these words. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether good or evil. So what are my take-home lessons from the life of Solomon? I have 4. Number 1, wisdom is supreme. Get wisdom. That's a quote directly from the Proverbs. You can ask for it. It will be a blessing in your life. Point number 2, Satan is patient. There's a good chance that if you are an effective person of God, that Satan knows your name. Remember the 7 sons of Sceva who tried to cast out demons in Jesus' name? And the demon said, Jesus I know, and Paul I know, but who are you? If he can take down the wisest man who ever lived, there's a fair chance he can get to you. Satan is patient. Don't let, sorry, I've written over my writing. Don't let your guard down or become complacent. The world around us is fast fulfilling Bible prophecy right in front of our eyes. This is not a time for sleeping. Point number 3, fear God and keep his commandments. David said it to Solomon. God said it to him in warnings twice. Revelation 14 calls for patient endurance on the part of the saints, those who obey God's commandments and remain faithful to Jesus. And point number 4, don't let anything separate you from God because it affects your happiness. Solomon said, so I hated life. Meaningless, meaningless. Life can be hard, but one thing is certain. 2,000 years ago, Jesus endured death on a cross for you and for me. And in that moment, a victory was won. An eternity of happiness is ours for the taking. Paul says, I've fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing. Thank you.